Hi, I'm Rabbi Aaron Bergman, and I just made a video of my reading one of my all-time favorite books, not just one of my all-time favorite children's books, but really one of my very favorite books, Where the Wild Things Are. And the stories and pictures were by Maurice Sendak. And I have loved this book ever since I played a tree in the Einstein Elementary School production of Where the Wild Things Are when I was in kindergarten. And I have loved that book ever since. I love Maurice Sendak, and I thought I would explain a little bit about why I like Maurice Sendak so much in general, and then talk about this book specifically, because I think that Maurice Sendak really thought deeply about kids and how they face their fears, and maybe how adults can learn to face their fears with the same courage that children do. So I'm going to share a little bit about his life and then talk about the book itself. Maurice Sendak was born in Brooklyn in 1928 to immigrant parents, and the immigrant experience was very significant for him. In fact, his family did not all get out of Europe before the Holocaust, and he found out literally right before his bar mitzvah, maybe a day or two before his bar mitzvah, that his grandfather perished in the Holocaust, and it was an absolutely devastating moment for him. He had already been a fairly sickly child. He spent a lot of time indoors, and this was just another very difficult thing for him. But art is something that really helped him cope. He was very good at drawing at a very young age. The problem is that children of immigrants were not often encouraged to become artists. In fact, he kind of had to hide from his parents for quite a long time what he was hoping to do for a living. They wanted him to go into something more secure. I mean, I understand parents who worry about their kids, and especially in such difficult circumstances, but he really had this tremendous talent and tremendous gift from a very early time. He said that he doesn't write children's books, he writes books that children like. And he always wound up having a wonderful relationship with families and children, mostly as pen pals. He said the greatest fan letter he ever got was from a young boy who had sent him a letter asking for his autograph. So he made a picture of Max, and he autographed and he sent it back. And a while later, he got a letter from the mother saying, "My son loved the picture so much, he ate it." And Maurice Sendak said that was absolutely the best thing that ever happened. Sendak said that I am obsessed with childhood and with the extraordinary heroism of children. And he really wrote his books in a way to help people deal with their fears. Some of his books, though, were banned. In fact, almost everything was banned originally by libraries all over the country. Some said because it was too dark, but part of the reason I think it was banned was because this book in particular, Where the Wild Things Are, this was the very first book, this came out in the early 60s, where when a child disrespected the parent or acted out or wasn't perfect, was sent to their room instead of being properly thrashed like they would have been in one of the Brothers Grimm stories. And people were so afraid of upsetting the social order. What do you mean you just give a kid a time out? What kind of person do you get doing that? And it turns out you get a healthy, well-adjusted person from that. And Maurice Sendak was a pioneer in that. So let me explain the title about Where the Wild Things Are. If you know any Yiddish, the word wild thing is wilde chaya. And when he was little, all of his relatives would call him a wilde chaya. So that's why he calls it Where the Wild Things Are. And the pictures in the book are pictures of his relatives. He did not love having his cheek pulled all the time. Like, they called it knipple or something. I don't know. He hated that. So the best way to get back at that is he turned them into wild things. Sendak was a brilliant artist. I just want to point out a couple things that I thought were really powerful. And even if you've read this a lot, you may not have noticed. So this is the first panel. And as you can see, there is a lot of white space around the picture. It is very cramped. If you look at the perspective, It's very, very narrow. Sendak understood early medieval art, and this was the kind of perspective that you would have seen. This is also the kind of cross-hatching that you would have seen as well. For a children's book, this was incredibly well composed artistically. He gave it a lot of thought in terms of all the details, because he knew that kids don't just look at the main character, they look all the way around. But if you look at this, it is a very small, very cramped apartment that he's in, and he is clearly not happy. But as you go through the book and he runs around a bit and he gets some of his energy out, you see the size of the picture expands and the amount of white space around it begins to decrease. It's very subtle. I'm not going to read the whole book for you because some of you are very familiar, or you could watch the video of my reading it, which I also just made. But you see here, when he's feeling free in his imagination and he's running around and playing and feels like a kid, all of a sudden his world really expands. And after a while he decides it's time to go home. And this is the last illustration. Now you see how big his room feels. The picture on the page is bigger. You see much more space in the room itself, that the perspective has widened significantly. And it's because his mother really reacted in a way that helped him. She understood that he was frustrated and angry and kind of all alone in this cramped place. So instead of reacting to his anger, she says, you know, you're going to need some space. Go to your room and figure it out. And she still brings him his meal. It is very clear that she still loves him. He never has to worry that even at his worst, she still loves him. And I think that this is important for us because right now we are not all at our best. I know I'm not. And tomorrow I'm probably going to be a little worse and crabbier, and then maybe it'll be better. It's going to be going back and forth. But part of what I love about Maurice Sendak is he says it isn't about loving each other at our best. It's loving each other even at our worst, and always being there for each other and making sure that we can get back from the place where all the wild things are. Have a wonderful rest of your day.